What's up, everybody? It's Alex from Heavy New York. We are back at Brooklyn Bazaar, and today we are here with Jacob Bannon of Converge and Wear Your Wounds. Thank you for your time today, man.
Thank you for talking to me.
Yeah, it's going to be an awesome show tonight. First thing is always first. Rust at the Gates of Heaven is the latest Wear Your Wounds record. What I'm curious is, how different of a mind frame is it playing in Wear Your Wounds versus like Converge?
It's not that much different. You know, both bands have personal songs that are about personal subject matter, and they're quite emotional. I think the only difference is that I'm not running around with a different kind of like full bore aggression, which a lot of Converge songs have. Converge has dynamics for sure, but Wear Your Wounds has just a different sort of sonic presence. So it's just a little bit different of a vibe, and I'm also, holding an instrument and doing a wide variety of other things. So it's just it's slightly different, but it's still at the end of the day, it's just performing songs live for people that want to hear 'em.
Can experimenting with another project allow you to bring in some newer elements? Like, could playing with Converge bring some elements to Wear Your Wounds, or vice versa?
Well, a lot of the sort of I'll call them sonic leaning, like the the larger sort of expansive Converge songs are things that I really enjoy playing with the guys. I like playing everything with Converge, but that's the stuff that I get a lot out of personally, and so that's the kind of music that I tend to write myself, and that's the kind of ideas that I tend to bring to any musical table, whether it be Wear Your Wounds or or Converge. Um, so yeah, I mean, all forward movement as a musician, as a creative person, brings you to the next thing. So everything is a slow evolution, right? So like your last song you wrote makes you a little bit better, a little bit sharper as an artist and communicator for your next one, and you just kind of continue that process. And the longer you go, the sharper things become.
As a vocalist, do you need to hear music to come up with lyrics, or do you sometimes have like a subject matter that you want to sing about, and maybe that helps determine the outcome of the music?
Yeah, so I write all the time. Well, not all the time, but I write when I feel motivated to do so. And more often than not, it's not for a song in particular. And then a song is musically written, and the time to sort of structure lyrical content to a song hat comes, and that's what I start doing. Um, that's usually the way I work. There's a lot of refinement that goes on in the writing process and the sort of phrasing process that can allows the written aspect of a song to evolve once the music is created, but they kind of exist independently for a brief time.
Do you like to leave your lyrics open to interpretation, or are you trying to maybe inform the listener on a certain subject, or maybe get them to see things from your point of view?
I write about personal subject matter, and when you do that, you have to sort of you have to the only narrative that you can control is the narrative as a creator of what you're putting into it. You can't control how somebody perceives that or how they relate to it once it leaves you. Okay, so the way I may write a particular song may have an effect on me and may have a certain meaning to me, but may have a different sort of meaning and connection to a listener, to yourself, to anybody. So I don't really think about it once it's sort of let go into the ether, because you can't control it. So it's futile to do that, and it's counterproductive as an artist. You just have to allow your things to exist, and trust that you are the that you're communicating to the best of your ability.
And a real question I really wanted to talk to you about is, I mentioned that I wrote about you actually when I was in art school, as well as John Baisley from Baroness, Mike D from Killswitch Engage, artists who work in the world of visual art as much as music. For you, is there a similar creative energy that you put into visual art and music, or is it a completely different creative process altogether?
It's all the same. It's all you. So it's all you. Just it's the same energy that makes me fold my clothes in the morning. Same energy that puts you know that I don't know, that does any sort of task. It's a skill set. It's a way of communicating, and you just sort of sharpen that over time. There's times where you feel really motivated to do it, and there's other times you feel not so motivated to do it. I just try to channel it in at the right times, and try to create honest, pure music and art. That's pretty much it. Like if I'm doing client work, it's a little different because client work, it's work for hire, but you're still utilizing the same tools. You just have a different sort of set of parameters and goals that you want to achieve with it. You have someone else's vision in mind that you're trying to capture.
Well, the first time I ever saw your work actually was the album cover that you did for As They Lay Dying. Shadows Are Security, I believe that was the album. And, it's funny, do you listen to the client's music as well to help you create a vision of how to make the album artwork?
It depends on the client and what they provide. Some clients have a record ready, or say if I'm doing work for an album, for example, some will have music ready to go, and I obviously prefer that, and I prefer structure and direction. A band like that, for example, really liked the sort of repetition of a specific image, a specific skull and look and feel. So that's what I stuck to for them, and tried to sort of evolve that vision over time, a little bit. And that was their aesthetic, where like a band like American Nightmare or Cave In or somebody like that I've also worked with in the past, or even like like very early records like I don't know, like a Poison the Well record, or like a I don't know, a Converge record. They all have different feels. I try to. There's a lot of records that I work on that don't have my name on them too. That I'm just essentially just the designer for. That I'm just doing a basic typography, and just setting stuff up so it can be the best version that it can be. So it really, I just look at it all as sharpening the skill set.
Is it a little bit easier to is it a little more independent? Because, like the Jane Doe album artwork, I consider that to be one of the most iconic album covers in extreme music. Like when you're doing your own artwork, and especially because every Converge album is different, Jane Doe is different from All We Love, We Leave Behind, or something like that. I'd imagine because you're doing your own band and your own artwork, that's probably the greatest amount of independence you have in the creative field, right?
I mean, to a degree, but my band's also a client, so like the records previous to that, I actually initially didn't even do the artwork for that record. Derek Hess did the artwork for that record, and it just wasn't really working the way I wanted it to. He did a lot of preliminary sketches for it, and I decided to just do it myself. Just because I had the skill set and I had a specific vision in mind that I thought I could create, and I just happened to do it and executed it well. But in the past, like Derek did 2 records for us. Aaron Turner's done a variety of paintings for us. I work with Thomas Hooper a lot, and he's a friend of ours and a great artist. I've worked with Baisley a bunch. You mentioned Mike D. I remember Mike D. did when he was in college in art school, he did a Converge project as part of his I think it's like thesis or like year-end art school project. It was cool, a different vibe, but it was cool. So like I've worked with a wide variety of people outside of the band, or outside of me specifically for my band, under my direction or whatever, or under our direction, and that's cool. It is what it is. What it is. I just try to just do the best possible job I can on anything.
And final question I'd like to ask you is, it's always the most difficult question I ask every artist or musician. How do you know either when a song or a painting is done?
You don't. You're never done, because you're always trying to take yourself out of your art and your music. You're always, striving for some sort of perfection, and perfection usually means erasing yourself from the thing that you're creating. You have specific things that you're a fan of, or specific thing that you're trying to capture, and you never quite capture it. It's never quite what you want it to be, and it never will be. But that's one of the aspects of being what I consider a true artist. You're always trying to improve upon that communication, and you're always trying to just grasp something that's just out of reach, and that's why you do it. And so you're never done. When if you're done, that's cool. Then you're probably going to stop making art and music for a while.
That's a very good way of putting it.
Mm-hmm.
So before we go, I'd like to thank you again for coming on. Is there just anything else with Wear Your Wounds or Converge that you would like to promote?
We all have a ton of stuff happening. Converge and what we call the Converge universe of bands that are all sort of interconnected to our world. Just pay attention to the internet and see what we're all up to, because we like forward movement and we like doing cool stuff.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
Everybody, Jacob Bannon of Converge and Wear Your Wounds, Rust on Heaven's Gate, or Rust on the Gates of Heaven, rather. Pick that up if you haven't already. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we'll see you next time.